Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of We Listen and We Judge.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back.
Okay, so I've been waiting for this day. This will probably be my favorite episode. We are finally going to talk about Reasonable Doubt. If you do not know, this is a TV show on Hulu, a Hulu original, and it stars. Do you know how to pronounce her name? I don't want
You know
to
you can't
mention.
depend on me for that.
Yeah, I think it's Amazi.
Oh, yeah.
I I don't want to pronounce mispronounced, but I think that's how you pronounce it. And she is the main character. She is a lawyer in LA. What I think is also important to highlight in this story, the producer or either the director, whoever is the creator of the show, they titled it Reasonable Doubt in relation to Jay-Z, and every episode title is a Jay-Z song. So they wanted to show homage to him being their favorite rapper, and he has so many songs in his catalog, so it works out perfectly. But I think that's really cool. If you go in and watch the episodes, you'll see there's a Jay-Z song that ties to it. So this is one show that mom and I both love, and I'll let her talk a little bit about it, her perspective too.
I like the show because of the different facets that we get to experience through Jax's eyes, and several of the things that she go through in her career, I feel her on that. I've experienced some of those things, and just trying to stay professional and keeping yourself above board. Of course, the storyline other than her career is very good. I can't identify with a lot of it, but it is very entertaining and it keeps you on your toes and guessing what's going to happen next. So that part I love about that, other than being able to identify with career wise.
So before we go too deep into it, I do want to highlight some season 1 and season 2 because this episode really is specifically to do a deep dive of season 3. But I do think it's important to talk about some season 1 and season 2 information and some of the themes that go in through the show because they were beautifully written, and a lot of people don't catch how deep the episodes and the plot actually get towards these themes. So, season 1, we see that Jax and her husband are going through some type of marital issues. I think the best thing about Jax is she is very flawed. A lot of times when it comes to a main character, they want to make the person perfect, they do no wrong, and they have no flaws. And sometimes you have that main character syndrome where you only see where the side characters are flawed humans and not the main character. But this show is very good at showing everybody's flaws, where everybody is wrong, and how they can fix themselves. So Jackson and her husband Lewis are going through marital issues. They are still married but separated. He has his own place, she has her place. So they're showing what a marriage can look like when two people love each other but also don't like each other anymore. And it kind of shows them dating other people, messing with other people. So that part of the season 1 is a theme about marriage and relationships. A lot of people say, hey, every marriage is different. Don't judge. You don't know unless you're in it. I think that show shows perfectly the definition of every marriage is different. You don't know until you're in it.
One thing I see in season one as well is part of the problem in their marriage is her career.
Hmm.
The amount of hours that she was spending preparing for court cases and taking on big clients that take a lot of time, effort, and energy, Lewis was feeling like he and the kids was kind of playing second fiddle to the career. And I get that. I think we talked about that a little bit in hostel culture, how you can have all these things going on in your career and it feels good to accomplish goals and grow in your career. But at the same time, you want to make sure there's a work life balance, especially if you have a family.
Hmm. This was the season where we really saw Jax at her raw state. She was very unevolved, underdeveloped, and lacked a lot of emotional intelligence in this season. But you still really liked her and you still really felt for her. but a lot of the things was kinda antagonistic and attacking, and she wasn't very understanding, but she was also very stressed too. And then some old flames came back in. She's trying to solve a case where you don't know if your client is guilty or innocent, and that's a common theme of all the seasons. You are unaware of if this person really did it or they didn't. I think they do a really good job of keeping us on our toes and guessing. The suspense of every episode is very high. They know how to tell the beginning of the story, how to get you into the plot, how to hit that climax, and then at the end you kind of plateau, but then they give you another climax for the next season. That's what I like a lot too.
Yeah, the cliffhanger on every season finale. But
Mm,
then, I mean, the time that it takes to get back to the show so you can see what happened,
yeah,
it leaves you guessing and talking about, "No, I think this happened. No, I think this is gonna
yeah.
happen," So they do a really good job of keeping the audience engaged even when they're in the off season filming and you're waiting for the new season to begin.
Yeah, so season 1 is like old lovers, hard work, hard marriages. Everything is hard, everything is tough, everything's in the thick of it. But at the end, they hit us more with mental health and suicidal thoughts. And when we go to season 2, it's very heavy on going to therapy, taking accountability for what you're doing wrong, realizing you can only fix your flaws, you cannot fix the next person's flaw. And we get
Right.
more into Jax's friend group. We're introduced more into Sally and the doctor that is a psychiatrist, also as well as Chanel. Chanel takes the forefront in this episode and is very heavy on mental health as well as domestic violence. Chanel lives this beautiful life on the outside, a very trophy wife. She had her own career, but then she meets this NFL player, and he looks like he's making her the best woman in the world. And I would say also infidelity comes up across multiple seasons too. So that's a thing that we have to take in consideration too. And then we're introduced to this other lawyer. Jax is not used to working with other high profile lawyer, so we're introduced to Morris Chestnut, who is just as good as Jax, but has actually a more charming personality. So that kind of puts her in a tug of war. She falls for its charm too, but it just shows some of the things that Jax lack as a person. She's very good at her job, but she is not as personable as his character. So that's kind of underlying thing people don't realize. You kinda have to charm people. You kinda have to be likable in these type of spaces, even if you're really good at your job.
I will
It is
say though, for women, it is a bit tougher because
right.
we often get accused of not having emotional intelligence anytime we show emotion. When a
Mhm,
guy shows emotion, it's yeah, go get him.
mhm,
He's tough. He's this. He's that. Whereas if we show any type of emotion, it's like, okay, here you coming in, guns blazing, or you
mhm,
know, you need to be careful about how you approach. Because we always seen as loud and boisterous and this and that and the third. When actually we're just with the same passion and persistence and force trying to get our point across. And it's often misconstrued. But so I feel like with Jax is some of that too, he might be seen as a character who is just as competent as she is, does a good job, but that charm, that charisma comes in or whatever. Whereas she is seemed like nose to the ground, steady, but straightforward, straight shooter, don't back down. But then when a woman is like that, it's often a little bit more negative.
uh, I agree with you in that part, but I do think Jax kinda does it to herself because some of the things she says, she don't necessarily have to say, in my
That's
opinion.
true.
Yeah, and that's just being in the HR world. You kinda learn how to say what you wanna say, but in a different way. And that's how you get away with it. But she does not cookie cutter and she doesn't really code switch. So that's just, the game that she's playing. And it's okay. A lot of times she's also not wrong. Sometimes she is, but a lot of times she's not. But I think because she's not wrong a lot, that gives her a little bit of arrogance. And then when she is wrong, people harper on it so much. She's, like I said, she's human. She's a flawed person. And we can see the flaws of all the characters, so that's what I like the most about it is So season 2 was a really good season. It was very suspenseful. I kind of guessed though pretty early on who did it, and I was correct. So if you watch that one, I wonder if people will be able to pick on who actually committed the crime and what actually happened. I think that one was a lot easier to guess than season 1.
But it was
But
so many other storylines going on too, so that
yes,
wasn't
yeah,
really the main focus of the
right.
season like
Yeah,
it was in season 3. So when
yes.
you think back to season 2, it was so many things going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah,
So,
I think season 2 was the character development. They showed us who everybody was and why they were that way
right.
more than any other. Well, season 3 kinda goes into it more, like, and honestly, it's amazing how much character development, how many plot lines we get when there's only 10 episodes for, like, 45 minutes. The writers do a really good job of putting in everything intentionally. There's not really much fluff. Everything has a meaning, everything has a connection. Like, being a person who wanted to write growing up and likes to write and still writes and trying to get their own thing off. This show just engulfs me because of how well written it is. It's not
They
just the
take their time.
acting. Yeah, it's not just the acting, it's actually the storylines. Every storyline, it is just soaking you in. You want to really be in the writer's room. Like, how did y'all come up with that? How did you think of that? What made you put those two things together? But I really think this season is important, especially for women who want to date high profile men or men who have a lot of money. It just shows you there might be. Now, I'm not gonna say every man is like that. No, I don't wanna spread that narrative. But you have to be careful about dating men just because of their status and how much wealth they have. Chanel was going through hell in that relationship, and it looked bling bling and this and that, but it was not something that was very safe for her children, and it definitely was emotional abuse, physical abuse, and financial abuse. And we really don't talk about that one as much. We're not gonna go too much into it today, but I do say watch that episode. He also tries to get her away from her friendships, and then it gets a little bit more messy because we realize that Louis and Chanel's husband was messing with the same girl. So that one gets very messy.
Season 2 was it had a lot going on.
Yeah.
But I will say, for it to be a 45-minute show, it seems like it takes the show is a lot longer than most shows. Like, you think you start watching something and then it's over quickly, but not with them. And I think it's because of the way they take their time in the writing and the way they develop the story. It's
Mhm.
developed in a way where you don't fall asleep because it's drug out either. But the storyline just really takes its time and it builds, and you're in there because you wanna know what's gonna happen next, so
Yeah.
the suspense is always there, and then the multiple storylines that they don't seem rushed, and they don't seem like they can't be occurring at the same time. Because sometimes when there's multiple storylines going on, then something seems really busy. And then I looked at some TikToks that disagree with us on that. They're mad about season 3. They felt like, "Get to the point already. You're dragging this Ozzy thing out." And we'll get there in a
Really?
minute, but I didn't agree with that. So I
I
thought
didn't either.
season 3 was well written. I think they took their time and they were able to run those multiple storylines beautifully.
I'll say whoever also is in the writer's room, they focus a lot on realism. So the reason why it doesn't seem drug out because the show seems like a real life, show. It doesn't seem like a necessary a drama or a what is the word? Soap opera, but it
Well, because it
seems
all can happen. Like,
right.
it's not
Yeah,
far-fetched and it doesn't
right.
seem. Yeah.
It's not, fantasy, it's not dramatized. It's actually it seems like a real life woman that we're watching her life. And
And when we get in this I'm sorry.
I was going to say it's very reminiscent of Insecure to me because that's why I loved Insecure so much because that was a real show. That was a documentary. That was not a drama. That was a documentary. That was somebody trying to get through their late 20s, early 30s and, you know, fix their life. So that's what I feel like about this show. It's a documentary, it's not a drama.
And when we get to season 3, which we're about to dive into, the multiple storylines, you can see those things playing out in real life all the time, and you can find yourself in some of those things that's happening. Like I said, I didn't identify with a lot of the things that were going on in season 1 other than the career itself. But in season 3, there are so many gems on things that are happening to us on a daily basis and how we have to approach it, attack it, and move forward. So
I
I'm
mean,
looking forward to us
we could
diving
go
on
ahead.
in.
As I said, we could go into that part. What do you think about that in your perspective?
Yeah, well, the underlying storylines that I saw, I'm gonna start with the fame of Ozzy and his family. What I see out of that is his parents being willing to do whatever it takes for Ozzy to stay in the show business at his expense and at the expense of their daughter, Christian. It seems like the limelight had gotten to that family to the point where they were willing to ignore the sexual abuse that Ozzy had gone through and turn a blind eye to signs of trauma, mental health needs, just to make sure in the show that made him so famous, My Cousins and Them, just making sure that his legacy on My Cousins and Them stayed intact. They were
Mhm.
willing to turn their head on a lot of things. Um, and even and we'll talk about it later because I don't know how much of season 3 we're gonna give away either. But
I think
even
we should go ahead and talk about all of it because at this point, if you didn't watch it, oh well.
well, just okay, spoiler alert. If
Yeah,
you wanna watch it and you don't wanna hear what happens, stop now and come back to us later. But
right.
anyway, even after his death, where everybody coming to the mom and the guy from the investigative journalist who came to the mom who wanted to do a story on his life, instead of her grieving in the moment and being around family, she immediately went back to what she knows, "Let me go do this interview," and I just feel like that is a huge part of why we saw the demise of Ozzy, even though he wasn't the murderer, even though he won his case. I feel like not having that stable family environment, when you're in show business, it is so easy to be distracted by drugs and alcohol and fast cars and fancy men or women. But if you are grounded and rooted in family and your family is purposeful in what they allow you to be exposed to or participate in, I feel like the tragedy that we saw what that happened to Ozzy would not have happened. And I
Mhm.
think the reason why it seems so real because we know of so many stories like that that we see in the news media, TMZ and on
Yeah.
TikTok, Facebook, and all the social media where things like this absolutely play out for young child stars.
Yeah, it gets to a point where people care more about the money and the fame than and they forget that their own child is a person. And that is just what they see them as a dollar sign. And that's what happened to Ozzy. I would say Ozzy's sister definitely loved him. I don't think she was there for the fame, but she was even showing signs of sociopathic behavior, and it got to the point where you wasn't sure if she was the one that killed Ozzy or not. But
Or Wendy, Ozzy's girlfriend, Wendy.
yeah. Oh, yeah, it killed Wendy or not, and that was very important to look at because not only did they neglect one child, they neglect the other child for the one child they were already neglecting. So, it got to the point where the parents were useless. They were actually his downfall.
And he was just looking for a family environment, which is why
Mhm.
when he won his case, his mom had invited him to dinner, but so did Jax. Well, he went to Jax's
Yeah.
house because he wanted to be around a normal he just wanted a normal life. He didn't know
Mhm.
how to grocery shop. He didn't know how to go do normal people things, and the sad part about it, after he died, she found in his pocket where he made a list of normal people things that he would like to do, and I
Mhm.
feel like that is child abuse if your child hadn't had any type of normal experience in
Mhm.
life because you want them to be in this business and you want your family to all be a part of this business that your child has never been to, and the things he had on that list, when I say normal people things, that he wanted to experience.
Yeah. So if we'll start with the beginning of the season and how it unfolds. So Jax is coming off of a high of getting her best friend Chanel out of jail. She got her man back. They're working on it. They went through therapy. They decided they are not going to uncouple. They're going to work on their marriage and they're only going to be together. So we told you that Corey, he was the co-chair with Jax. They kind of had a little bit of an entanglement, but they did not sleep together. But
Corey
they
is Morris Chestnut, y'all.
yeah, yeah. And they wanted to, they like each other, but Jax chose her marriage. Now, Lewis done went out and got with it ain't no fun if the homie can't have none, old girl. So she has slept with both friends in the group. And they were trying to figure out whose baby it was. So at this point, Tony, the homie hopper, is pregnant. And they didn't know if it was Chanel's husband's baby or Lewis's baby. It turns out to be Lewis's baby. So now Lewis has come back with a break baby. And that is very unfortunate, but I think it is a lot of people's reality. That's what happens when you decide to bring other people into your marriage. Now, at this point, personally, I would never be with somebody who has a child outside of our marriage. However, I will say this was at the detriment of Jax's undoing because Lewis did not want to be out there, but she was out there dating other people, sleeping with other people. So he did decided to do the same. He just actually got somebody pregnant. That's where I can't be like, okay, you know, Jax, this is so horrible. It was just kind of like they were both doing their own thing while they were figuring it out. So Tony is pregnant, but Tony loses the baby. And then she sues Lewis and Jax because Jax goes in on her about how she's just trying to be very nasty. And the thing about Tony is she's just one of those women that uses sex to get what she wants, but she's starting to realize, I guess, like that does not keep a man. She already has one child, the father's not around, and so she's looking for love in the wrong ways. She sees that Lewis is a good guy, very stable, but Lewis is a man and men have flaws. He just wants to, get away from his marriage because his wife doesn't want him. So he gets with Tony, not knowing how she really is. Tony's pregnant. He's going to take care of the baby. They're going to do what they're supposed to do. But Tony is basically wanting more than being Lewis's baby mama. She basically really actually wants Lewis and thought they were gonna build on something. But he went back to Jax, Jax went back to him. So with the baby dying or her having a miscarriage, she sues both of them for emotional stress. Now, the weird thing about it is she doesn't actually want the money. It just shows she wants the comfort of a man. She had already made a nursery for the baby. She's really going through postpartum depression from losing the child. And also, that's another thing, grief, postpartum depression. Even though the child is not alive, you still feel that depression because you no longer have something that was a part of you. The baby was supposed to be here and it was not. And he, being the good guy that he is, he wants to be there for her, but he also wants to keep his marriage. He really loves Jax. He does not want to lose Jax. But, Jax is a little bit like I don't think any woman will be too comfortable with your husband staying the night with their baby mama. And that's kind of what happens. Like she wants Lewis to stay over and she really actually wanted another baby from Lewis, but he had to like say, "Hey, you know what? We'll just pay you. I'm not doing this." But Tony, after them breaking down the nursery, she finally gets the closure that she needs. And I'm sure she was still going through grief, but she was really having a hard time dealing with it. A lot of emotions, really wanting somebody like Lewis in her life, and it just didn't happen. Now, at the same time, Jax is kinda still having conversations with Corey. He's not as heavily in this season, but he's still around, and, he's like, "Hey, do we need to tag team on this Ozzy case?" Because at this point, Jax, Ozzy, and Corey have all met at this event, and then this is when we unfold that Wendy was killed. Immediately, he calls Jax, lets her know, "I need your help. I can't do this. I don't know what happened. They're saying I'm a murderer." Ozzy is freaking out. So Jax immediately goes into lawyer mode. And I will say this is one of Jax's flaws. She gets too close to the person she's defending to. She gets really emotionally attached. It's a flaw, but it's also a strength because she also can use it in her own, cases and to help her argue things. But
Well, here's one of the bigger themes out of that. The theme out of what you just said about Jax getting too close to her clients, that mother instinct that kicks in, and especially for the African American female, just feeling like you gotta protect everybody around you, no matter who they are. I mean, black, white, Hispanic, it's indifference to us when it's about protecting. We just go into protection mode of everybody. So I feel
yeah,
like that is one of the big themes. It's just her getting close to that client, feeling like she has to protect him and help
yeah.
him through the things that happens in his life and to fix those things, even the drug use and things like that. So just that protective mother mode.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's a flaw, but it's also a strength. That's what
Yes.
also puts her ahead of some of the other lawyers because
Right.
she knows, and in most cases, she does know how to use it and to be superior. But sometimes it does uh mess up her case because she's just really truly believing them. And people lie. Sometimes they're not as open to be honest about what happened, even if it is their lawyer. So we see that come up a little bit. Ozzy does get in trouble every now and then because he's not telling Jax the whole truth. But also, Ozzy is probably the one she was more protective of because of his drug use, dealing with the fact that we finally see that Jack's dad was a drug addict. And to the point where she was around the drugs, didn't know that there were drugs at the time because she was a child, but her dad put her in the harm in the environment of being around drugs, and he would call it his medicine. And
Mhm.
at that point, Jack's mom was doing everything to protect herself as well as Jack's. We see the relationship between Jax and her mom is a little battered, but it's not to the point where they hate each other. It's just so much emotional turmoil from the past. And a lot of times Jack's mom's kind of come off as like a little bit of a pick me in my opinion. But then you see like why she's kind of like that. So
Hmm.
yeah.
I wouldn't have thought that. But what I will say is another big thing that comes from the relationship between Jax, her mom, and her dad is forgiveness. All
Hmm.
the things that had happened in her childhood, and then when her dad comes back into both of their lives, actually, the mom forgives him and they at least have a friendship. And then Jax begins to forgive her dad and they start developing a relationship as well.
But that's why I say she's a pick me because at the end of the day, like she kind of overplayed it. When it comes to forgiveness, only you can forgive. You can't make somebody do something they're not ready to do. Jack still had boundaries she wanted to put out, and they broke her boundaries multiple times. And parents can honestly do that because they feel like, well, you're my child. But sometimes it's really not fair. She wasn't ready to introduce Eddie to her kids. She wasn't ready to tell them what happened, and it happened anyway because her mom and her dad did whatever they wanted to. And that was not fair to Louis or Jax. So,
Hmm.
and that showed a different dynamic too. And I think that comes up in all seasons that her mom kind of oversteps her boundaries a couple of times, but they always work it out. And her mom was sick, she had cancer, and Jax went into that overprotection mode. She got to fix the world. She got to solve everybody's problems. Her mom is just like, no, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it how I want to do it. I'm going to get this surgery, and this is my call. So Jax was having a hard time letting go of control because she is very controlling.
Another big theme that I was gonna talk about, control.
Mhm.
Um, Learning that we can't control every situation, and just because we're present in the mix and doing things, that doesn't mean it's gonna turn out the way we want it to.
Right,
And that's tough for women, um, to just kinda take a step back and let people make their own choices and be supportive even if the choices are wrong. Still be supportive, but her mom actually made the right choice for herself. She survived the surgery even though Jax was dead set against it, and I appreciate the mom standing her ground and making the choice that she wanted to make, and no matter how it turned out, Jax needed to be ready to support her. And
yeah,
so just sometimes we just gotta understand that we are not in control of everything that happens in life, and we have to take a step back and be supportive of those who make choices that we wouldn't have made, but they need our support.
right. Like, only Jax's mom could know what is good for Jax's mom. Even though Jax is an amazing lawyer and she did have access to a lot of great doctors, her mom would know what's best for herself. So Jax had to let her do what she was supposed to do. But she did go into that overprotective mode. And I think it is how her mom went about it. She did want to be a part of the decision, but at the end of the day, she had to realize it's not her decision to make.
Right.
It was Mama Lou's decision to decide. And so then she was a little bit angry with the dad and the mom, and Lewis knew because Lewis hired Jax's private investigator to investigate her dad, which was really funny. Like, Lewis is very protective. He has cameras everywhere. He's a little bit like him and Jax have issues too because they're both kind of controlling, but he is the one to cave in more than she is.
Well,
So,
going to Lewis though, there's another theme that runs throughout. He hires this guy, this black guy who is supposed to be a coder, because
mhm.
he's in the gaming industry. And this guy really turns out to have lied on his resume, and he can't do half of the things that Lewis thought he could do,
He
and he's
can't do
not up
any
to
of the
par.
things.
He can't do any of the
Any
things.
of the things.
But then he tries to use the fact that they're both black men, "Hey, brother, give me another
Mhm.
chance, give me another chance," or "You just putting in all these hours for the man." No. When we are in positions where we have the opportunity to show excellence, we should show excellence. And that's what we was kind of talking about in our last episode with going to HBCUs. Excellence is always the goal, no
Right.
matter what. And so you don't ever make it about us against them. You make it about anything that you take the time to invest your time in as a career, you do it well.
Yes.
Like my mom used to tell us, be the best at whatever you are. If you're sweeping dirt, then the dirt better be swept all in the same direction just as beautifully as possible. Just make sure you're the best at whatever you are, and don't blame this and that and the third on you not bringing your A game to the situation. And even if your work is not appreciated or respected, you still bring your A game every day.
Right. And I believe wholeheartedly in solidarity, but I also believe all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And
Well,
he was
and
definitely
yeah,
one of those. He was not somebody that you put your neck on the line for. He wasn't trying to better himself. He was trying to get over on everybody, including the black man. I think the reality is he would not have done that to a white man. He would only do that to black men
well, I
or
think it's
black women.
important for us to give each other a leg up and help each other learn the ropes. But like I said, everybody needs to bring excellence and A game to the table.
And you can't help everybody. You just cannot. Everybody cannot be saved. And that is the reality of the situation. It is very important to have discernment. And I
Of
think
course.
the problem was Lewis is very trusting unless he knows better. He didn't know anything about this guy, so he didn't know what to look for. But when he knows, he's very much okay. You're not. Because he was the one that knew Eddie was full of BS because of what Eddie did in the past. He was not forgiving of Eddie. He supported Jax in her journey of forgiveness, but he was not trusting of Eddie. They actually got into a little verbal spat back and forth, and that was interesting too. It shows family dynamics when you don't like certain family members. And a very important thing, I thought a very important episode was the reality of Lawrence's I mean, Lewis's parents was not the actuality of the Lewis's parents, and what he thought they were not what they were. They were decoupled, but still married on paper. So he was not aware of this because in his head they had the perfect marriage, they were the perfect family, but that just shows like you don't know what people go through. And it was interesting how Lewis and Jax became that model couple when just a few episodes ago they were dealing with Break Baby and the death of Break Baby. So a lot of times we get in a better spot and we look down on people who are going through what we used to. So I guess there's a lot of themes in this show. It just
Yeah.
shows
Having
the
empathy and
reality.
sympathy for those in
Yeah.
situations, of course, I would
And
say would be a major theme there.
not assuming everything is perfect and looking at your
Well,
own
that's that
flaws.
outside looking in,
Yeah.
you can't be on the outside looking in and thinking that this is I guess that goes back to role models, which too many people haven't watched that, but when you think about role models, and you were saying you don't like it, well, that's one of those situations where Lewis looking at them as role models, and it's not even actually what he
But
thought it was supposed to be.
and that was exactly my point. You really don't know unless you know. So
Yeah,
you
exactly.
really shouldn't be putting anybody on a
On a
pedestal as
pedestal,
your role
correct.
model because
No
you
idolizing,
he had
absolutely.
no idea, but his parents also had no idea what him and Jax were going through. On on the outside looking in, they have beautiful children. They have great careers. They have this beautiful house. That's one of the things that comes up when Morris Chestnut now brings his fiance Brandy to their house. Oh my gosh, this view is amazing. Y'all have a lovely home. Y'all got the best wine, but she was down bad smoking cigarettes and he was putting up cameras to spy on her just
Yeah.
a couple of seasons ago. So nobody would know unless they know, unless you put everything on social media and
Well,
every
one
time
of
y'all
the
get into it. But
yeah, one of the final themes that I would like to dig into just real quickly is at the end of the season when Jax realized that she's been at this firm all these years, she's made partner, and she has worked really hard, has won a lot of cases, made them a lot of money. They realize she's made them a lot of money and has said so out loud. But in fact, they were still willing to bring Corey Morse Chestnut into the firm as a partner when they were going through some mergers. Didn't even tell Jax about the merger, and the only time she had heard about the plans was from Corey, and then they never got around to telling her. And she looks around her office and she realizes how great she is. And she goes and gets a box and she packs her stuff and she starts her own firm. I think
and
I was
this
cheering inside, I was cheering outside, like, I was just cheering because I was like, "Yes, ma'am. You are who you think you are."
And this had been building from like Billable Bill being asked to be a co-chair slash spy on Jax. The thing is, though, I think one thing people aren't going to realize is what is the difference between advocacy and ally. So Bill wanted to appear to be an ally to Jax, and he also wanted to be partner. I don't think Bill had ill intention in what he was doing. He was just basically, I'm a white man, I'm a lawyer. You should look at me with more respect. You should think I know more than you. And I think that's honestly how Bill saw it. Well, I get all these hours. You might be partner, but I got all these hours. I got all these clients. I am friends with the partners. They like me better. So you should take in consideration of what I'm saying. Like he wanted to appear as an ally, especially, oh, well, I have a black family, so I understand what a black woman might be going through. But Bill didn't know. He still didn't really even get it until he saw Jax leaving. And he tried to go into advocating for her, but I don't think he even understand what he was trying to say
What he
or
was advocating
do.
for, yeah.
That's what he wanted to do in his heart because he saw how amazing she was and he finally realized this woman is better than I am. She might be a little attitudinal. She might not listen to
She's
anybody.
edgy.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
she might not listen to anybody, but she's amazing. She is the best one out of all of us, and he wanted to portray that to he was trying to advocate for her, and that is something that you have to be very careful for when you are a person that is not of color, when you're not black. When you're advocating, you don't also want to seem like you know more about the black experience than they do. And that's why she was a little bit upset because it's like, now it took me doing all of this for you to say that. You should have been on that. You should have came to me from the jump. You should, because I at one point she was trusting of Bill. She saw like, okay, he do care more about winning the case than his own skin in the game, and he is actually a good lawyer, and he can be an asset. But at the same time, Bill was trying to make partner. I don't necessarily. A lot of people are mad at Bill. A lot of people want to slander Bill, but I see it another way. As somebody who's also trying to grow their career, you're gonna do what's best for you. Nobody want to be honest about it. You're going to do what is best for you. Would I go about it in another way as a black woman? Yes. Would I say like, hey, if I got to make partner to do this, I don't think that's going to be for me. And a lot of times, one thing I'll do once I get sick of you, I'm going to leave.
I
Like,
I've seen experiences where like Jax, she has plenty of money, plenty of clout, plenty of success, but her experience is still not the same.
mm,
The
yeah.
respect, or I would say the lack of respect that she receives from her partners, even though she's better than they are, even though she makes more money for the firm than they do, she's still disrespected at every turn when you
Mm.
look through these episodes.
And I think a lot of it had to do was because they were not treating her as an equal. It
Right,
was
the respect,
There
that's
was
what I said,
no
it's not
there was
respect.
no real equity in the
Right, and she's
situation.
an equity partner.
Yeah, but there was no equity. She was giving a title for vanity reasons to, I guess they thought this will calm her down, this will make her less this, but really she wasn't that. A lot of Jax's attitude in her career is due to what they're saying to her. That's how she responds. So that's kind of where it is. It's not necessarily like she's just there are people that are rude and unnecessarily combative, but really Jax was professional and they would not give her the respect that she needed to get.
But I love the moment when she realized she is that girl, and she
Mhm.
started packing those boxes.
Yeah. And in the reality, like I was saying, like if that was my experience, I would not have been there as long as she had. I don't really
Right,
believe in being somewhere that long when people are not treating you how you
and
should.
in your generation, you all are a lot more mobile, I will say
Mhm.
that.
Yeah. So but the episodes were very good. I think the seasons get better and better as they go on. I do think this was one of the best seasons they've had. All of them are great, I will say, but this one, every episode was a turning point, and you really did not know who did it. I don't think anybody had a clue who did it, but it was the dad. The dad was a lot more evil than we anticipated him to be because he was a lot more quiet. It seemed like the mom made all the calls, and the mom was the head honcho. And a lot of that had to do with the mom being the brains and the dad not really having anything to contribute to. I think his ego got in the way. He wanted to be the one to make the calls and he wanted to be respected to his children, but they looked to the mom for everything. So that was my perspective.
Alright.
So before we go, we do have a new game that we want to introduce. Since this episode was about a TV show, I thought it would be cool to come up with something called What's Your Scene Song? So in every scene, there's a different song playing in the background. At the beginning of scenes, they play a song. At the end of scenes, in the middle, when something happens, you have a song playing. So we wanted to use a couple of scenarios to come up with some scene songs. And I'm going to give us 4 scenarios and what song we will use. And these scenes come from Reasonable Doubt, a little bit of a play. So the first one is your partner got somebody else pregnant. what song would you play? And I put I'm Not Gonna Cry, Mary J. Blige. I am gonna cry, but that's what's gonna be playing in the background once I find out and stop crying.
Me? You it's my
Yeah, what
turn?
about you? Yeah.
To the left,
Okay, yeah,
everything you want in the box to the left
okay, that's a
with
good
our
one.
party. Okay, oh, that's it.
Alright.
Irreplaceable.
Okay, Irreplaceable by
Beyonce.
Beyonce. That's a good song. Now, you found out you have a long lost sibling. My song that I'm gonna select is Papa Was a Rolling Stone by The Temptations. If I
We
found out I
are
had another sibling,
family.
okay, so
I got all my sisters and me.
you would be open to it?
Yeah, I mean, if it's my sister,
I don't think I'd be open to it.
it's my sister. I mean, but thank God I don't have that situation.
Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, you started your own business. I said "Blessed" by Fred Hammond. So we're blessed in the city.
Mhm.
I think that would be a good song once I start a business.
Girl on Fire,
Okay,
Alicia Keys.
that's a good one. And then finally, you just won a big legal case. And the song I'm choosing is I'm That Girl by Beyonce.
Oh, I got a Beyonce one too, actually. Ego. I
Okay,
talk like this 'cause I can back it up.
okay. That's a good one for winning the case. Okay,
Yeah.
so hopefully you guys are playing at home. What's your scene song? Think of different scenarios and what song you will play. But thank you so much for tuning in for We Listen and We Judge. And make sure you check out Reasonable Doubt seasons
Season
1
1,
through
2,
3.
and 3.
3, yes. Hopefully we can talk more about it with season 4. And another show that I'm really excited that's coming back is Bel Air. So be looking for that because we'll discuss Bel Air too.
Thank you for tuning in this episode and having fun with us about Reasonable Doubt on We Listen and We Judge.